Today, November 20th, we are in 1 Corinthians. We're going to pick it up in chapter 8. Chapter 8 is a chapter we kind of referenced in our study in the book of Romans at Calvary Chapel not too long ago. And it has to deal with weakened faith or weakened conscience and matters that are not sinful, but can become sinful to someone. And if we're not careful, we can cause another to stumble. And so the example in the church in Corinth was about food offered to idols. And the way it was working, what was happening was to get cheaper meat. You know, the people would go to the market, and after it had been offered to an idol, it would get sold, you know, at a cheaper price because it's used meat, which, you know, an idol is not human. It doesn't eat meat, so it sits there and then they sell it. And so for some we're like, hey, cheap meat is great. Others are like, no, I can't do this because it was offered to an idol. And so he says in verse 4 of chapter 8, therefore, as to the eating of food offered to idols, we know that an idol has no real existence and that there is no God but one. Right? He's like, yeah, we know this. There may be so-called gods in heaven and earth, and indeed there are many gods and many lords, yet there is one God, the Father, from whom all things and for whom we exist, and our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom are all things and through whom we exist. And he's like, but not everyone knows this. That's what verse 7 says. And so some see it as being offered to an idol, and so their conscience is weak, and they feel like, I can't do this. And so, what does he recommend? Well, don't sin against your brother by putting it in his face, a struggle that he has, be the vernacular we would use today, right? Don't do something that you know is going to cause someone else to stumble, cause someone else to sin, because their consciences are not at the same place as yours. And so he follows that up by chapter 9, which is interesting, you know, because he just gives this example that's a gray area about how we treat one another. And so then he moves into talking about, hey, I'm an apostle, and that's rank and privilege and honor and respect and all these things, but I don't go around like that. And so it seems to really flow well because he's demonstrating that heart, that whenever we make something about ourselves, my rights, my way, it's a good idea to check our spirit, because there's something probably in the way. There's something that's not right. And it's going to cause others to stumble. It's going to cause us to grow in pride. And both are not what God has in and for our lives. Till next time, keep growing little by little.